the day of your death, everything becomes clear. And for Nancy, that day came to reveal a truth she never imagined, a truth that, as a skeptic and rational thinker, she was not prepared to accept. A woman who had spent her life denying the existence of anything beyond the tangible was now faced with a reality that many only encounter in their final moments. I am Lucius Eternus, an angel of death. A silent observer, a guide. And today, I follow a soul who thought she had all the answers, only to find, when confronted with death, that she knew nothing at all.
In shadows I walk, I've been here from the start. I am the hand that seals fate, the end of every...
Santa Barbara, a city framed by mountains and the whispering sea, is the backdrop of Nancy's story. She grew up seeing the world with wide, curious eyes, believing there was something more than what could be touched or seen. As a child, she spoke of the divine as if it existed in the trees, in the flowers, as though everything around her pulsed with a spark of life that went beyond the physical. But, as with so many human souls, time and life's harsh realities chipped away at that faith. And I was there, watching. As Nancy grew, she became a skeptic. Every new question seemed to hit a wall of silence, and over the years, her innocent curiosity morphed into doubt. And doubt, oh, it can be ruthless, slowly devouring the belief that there's something greater, something that goes beyond the tangible. Nancy's spirituality faded in the face of the rational world around her. How can there be a God when pain is so real? How can there be light when all I see are shadows? Those were the questions that dominated her thoughts as she distanced herself from religion. And I, standing beside her, could see how this inner struggle made her soul tremble with uncertainty. Nancy became a scientist, a person who craved proof, facts, and answers that could be measured and calculated. To her, spirituality became nothing but a mirage. Science, she thought, that is a truth I can see, touch, and trust. Her studies in geology taught her to see the world as something solid, physical, with no room for mysteries. The spiritual realm became just a distant idea, buried like an old childhood memory. Yet, there's something the human mind always tries to forget: doubt. And even when Nancy immersed herself in science, a small voice whispered, a question she tried to avoid: what if I'm wrong? What if there's more than this? But she quickly brushed that thought aside, clinging to the safety of the certainty she had built over the years. After all, uncertainty is uncomfortable. The unknown is frightening. And to her, death was just that, a mystery best left unexplored. I, Lucius, watched it all unfold with the eyes of one who has seen many souls walk this path. I saw how every little doubt in Nancy's mind was like a crack in a solid wall, a wall she was trying to build around herself to keep the fear of death at bay. But fear always finds a way to seep through, no matter how strong the barrier. And time went on. Nancy tried to ignore it, tried to bury her questions in studies, in work, in a life that seemed ordinary. But there was a storm brewing, something she couldn't control. And in her search for answers, she had no idea that she was about to find something that no science could ever explain, a truth she could no longer deny. I see it. I feel it. Every step she takes brings her closer to that inevitable moment. She doesn't know it yet, but her journey is about to change forever. Death doesn't always come quietly. For some souls, it's like a storm. Overwhelming, sudden, relentless. And today, I watched that storm closing in on one woman, Nancy. Santa Barbara. Late afternoon. Nancy, in her early 40s, moves through life like any other day, routine, work, her thoughts drifting. She gets on her bike, feeling the cold wind brush against her face as she pedals through the streets she knows so well. Perhaps, somewhere deep down, there's a faint sense that today will be different. But she brushes it aside. Her scientific mind craves certainty, not premonitions. Yet the soul, oh, the soul always knows. Lucius, that's me. I follow every move she makes. Each pedal, each heavy breath. I see her determination as she approaches the roundabout, hands gripping the handlebars tightly, with the kind of focus you'd expect from someone who believes they can control their life. But it's right there, at that very moment, that everything changes. The control she thought she had is about to shatter. Suddenly, she finds herself in the middle of something she could never have predicted. A car appears to her right, too fast, leaving her no time to react. Nancy instinctively throws out her hand, as if that small gesture could stop the inevitable, as if it could push back against fate. Time seems to freeze as she is thrown into the air, the bike crumbling beneath her, the world spinning around like a scene out of a nightmare. As she crashes onto the hood of the car, I can feel her soul, overwhelmed by panic, pain, and confusion. It all happens too fast, and I can see her struggling to comprehend, fighting to stay conscious. Then, her eyes lock with those of the driver, who remains distracted, eyes fixed on her phone, oblivious to the world around her. And Nancy understands, in that chilling moment, that she's alone, utterly at the mercy of something far beyond her control. The impact thunders through the streets. Her body rolls over the car, hands desperately grasping for anything to hold on to, but there's nothing, just emptiness. And then she hits the asphalt, hard, and in that moment, there's a feeling that the end is near. Every second stretches into an eternity. The street lights flicker in her eyes, everything around her blurs, sounds, voices, sirens echoing in the distance. I sense Nancy's desperation as she tries to make sense of what's happening, but her body is broken, far too heavy to move. And the pain, it's real, it's alive, it pulses through every part of her. She feels the warm blood trickling, the weight of a body that refuses to respond. And I watch. Not as a judge, but as a guide, someone who understands the thin line between life and death. I see how, even in the middle of chaos, Nancy fights to survive. She clings to the idea of life with every breath, no matter how faint, no matter how labored. Her soul struggles, like someone desperately trying to break the surface of a violent river. Then, the paramedics arrive. One of them firmly grips Nancy's wrist, and she feels a fleeting sense of security, a last thread of hope. But even as the scene swarms with movement, the sirens, the shouts, the four-needle piercing her skin, there's something else happening. Something beyond what human eyes can see, but that I, Lucius, can clearly sense. Nancy's soul hovers between two realms, suspended, as though it no longer fully belongs to this world. As they load her into the ambulance and the frantic rush to save her takes over, there's a fleeting moment, just a fraction of a second, where Nancy feels herself detached from her body. It's as if she's a spectator, watching her own existence from a distance. And in that instant, I know the thread tying her to life is being stretched, ready to snap. The race against time has begun, but it's not a race against death, it's a race to understand what it truly means to be alive. And as the ambulance speeds through the streets of Santa Barbara, chaos, fear, and that fragile line between life and death intertwine. And I, beside her, witness the storm that's brewing. The final storm, before she crosses over to the other side. Sometimes, the line between life and death is as thin as a thread of silk. One moment there's pain, the next, peace. And it is on this very threshold that I watch Nancy, about to cross into a place where words fall short. As Nancy is wheeled into the operating room, her body numb from pain and medication, her soul hovers in a state of uncertainty. She feels the cold metal of the stretcher against her skin, the air around her thick and heavy, as if the world is closing in. But then, something shifts. As she slips into unconsciousness, it's as if the weight of the physical world is suddenly lifted from her. And I, Lucius, watch as she crosses into a different place, a place where pain can't reach. The darkness around her dissolves, and Nancy finds herself in a field of light. But it's not just any light, it's alive, pulsing like a giant heart that wraps around her with warmth and love. How can this be, she wonders, but the thought is quickly replaced by a deep sense of belonging. For the first time, Nancy feels she's exactly where she's meant to be. I watch as she walks slowly through this field, her feet brushing against soft, almost translucent grass. The flowers around her sway gently, as if dancing to a melody only they can hear. Each petal, each leaf glows with its own light, and Nancy feels that light fill her up, touching every part of her soul. Is this real? She asks herself, but the question soon becomes irrelevant. Because here, in this place, reality is just a concept. What truly matters is the sense of peace, of finally feeling at home. The physical world she left behind becomes a distant echo, like a fading dream. The pain, the fear, the doubts, all forgotten, replaced by a calm that wraps around her like an eternal embrace. And then, Nancy senses a presence. Not a threatening one, but one filled with understanding and love. A figure, feminine and radiant, emerges from the mist and light before her. I, Lucius, see how this figure welcomes Nancy like an old friend, someone who's been patiently waiting for this moment. And Nancy, in turn, feels a familiarity with this presence, even if she can't quite place it. The woman steps closer, placing a gentle hand on Nancy's shoulder, and suddenly, all the answers she's been searching for her entire life feel within reach. You are home, the presence whispers, and her voice isn't heard but felt. It resonates through the field of light, reaching deep into Nancy's heart, as if directly linked to her very essence. And in that instant, Nancy understands. She understands that the life she lived on Earth was just a small part of something far greater, something she had always known but had forgotten upon her birth. I watch as Nancy kneels down in the field, tears streaming down her face, not tears of sadness, but of relief. She realizes there is no judgment here, no condemnation. Only acceptance and love. A love that makes her recall all the moments of joy she experienced, every smile, every small act of kindness. She feels the presence of this woman as a reminder of what it means to be whole, as if she is finally looking at her own soul reflected in a mirror made of light. And then, the light around her begins to shift. Nancy sees that each ray of light contains fragments of her own life, images from her past, like watching her entire earthly journey unfold before her eyes. Every decision, every choice, every moment of love or pain. It's all there, not as judgments, but as lessons. Pieces of a story that, now, she can finally see in its entirety. I witness Nancy being overcome by a deeper understanding than she has ever known. She feels that life, with all its challenges and struggles, was a school, a chance to learn, to grow, to evolve. And she realizes that every pain, every fear, was simply a piece of a larger puzzle that now, bit by bit, starts to fit together. As she remains kneeling in the field, the figure of light beside her gently guides her. Nancy closes her eyes, surrendering to the peace and the certainty that no matter what comes next, she is exactly where she is supposed to be. And I, Lucius, see how this journey into the realm of light awakens something new within her, something that will change the way she views life, death, and, above all, herself. There are moments when a person's entire life is revealed like an open book, each page displaying the choices, the paths, and the consequences that have shaped their journey. And it's in this moment that I see Nancy face her truth. In the vast expanse of this field of light, Nancy senses a shift. Beside her stands a figure, feminine and comforting, raising a hand as if unveiling something that's always been there. The surroundings around Nancy change. The luminous field becomes more vibrant, each ray of light a bridge to the past. And then, before her, a map appears, not a map of lines and borders, but one made of moments and memories. Every curve, every point is a piece of her life, a choice she made, a decision that brought her here. I watch alongside her as she sees what seems to be a representation of her life's course, not just the experiences she's had, but all the paths she could have taken. An infinite spectrum of possibilities, all converging at the same endpoint, showing her that no matter the choices, the final destination remains unchanged. This realization brings her a deep sense of relief. There is no wrong path, she thinks. It all brought me here. As Nancy studies the map, the spiritual figure beside her communicates without words, through sensations and understanding. She guides Nancy, revealing that each line on the map is not just a logical choice, but a choice of the heart. Nancy feels the presence of this guide like a gentle hand on her shoulder, a touch that brings both understanding and clarity. She realizes that the center of this map is tied to something within her, her heart. It's as if every decision she made in life came not just from her mind, but from an internal wisdom, a profound intuition. I, Lucius, see Nancy enveloped in a new understanding. The spiritual figure teaches her that throughout her life, it was not just reason steering her decisions. There was something deeper, a core wisdom that always guided her to the right place. And that wisdom, often muffled by fear, ego, or logic, is what truly leads a soul where it needs to go. Nancy feels as though a curtain has been drawn back, revealing that all her doubts and uncertainties were not mistakes, but parts of a greater learning process. Then, the being of light asks Nancy to kneel by a serene lake, a mirror-like surface reflecting the stars above. Touch the surface, she whispers, and Nancy, hesitant at first, dips her fingertips into the water. Gentle ripples spread across the lake, and with each ripple, a small scene emerges, scenes from her life. As if each droplet is a memory, a moment, a reflection of everything she's experienced. Nancy begins to see the moments that seemed insignificant, but had a far greater impact than she ever imagined. She sees herself as a child saying something kind to a classmate, and how that changed that person's day. She sees herself as an adult, choosing to help someone in need without expecting anything in return. And as she watches these moments unfold, she feels the joy, the gratitude, and the love of those who were touched by her actions. It's as if she's not only reliving her own experience, but also experiencing it from the perspective of others, feeling what they felt, witnessing the happiness she brought into the world. I watch as Nancy is overwhelmed by a mix of emotions. There's joy, yes, but also regret. Because not all of the scenes reflect kindness. There are moments of anger, pain, and words spoken without thought. And as she relives them, Nancy feels the weight of the wounds she caused, as if each harsh word, each indifferent gesture, left a mark not only on others but on herself as well. This is who we are, I think to myself. A blend of light and shadow, love and pain, actions that echo beyond our understanding. And I see, for the first time, Nancy comprehending this truth. The being of light beside her doesn't judge or condemn, but instead guides her to see the beauty in her growth. Because every mistake, every regret, is simply a step toward a greater understanding, a deeper acceptance. With tears in her eyes, Nancy looks to the spiritual figure and says, "I wish I had done more. I wish I had loved more." And the response she receives is an embrace of light, as if the very universe is saying, "You did enough. You did the best you could with what you knew." As she allows herself to be wrapped in this understanding, the lake before her begins to fade, and Nancy feels at peace. She understands that every choice, every path, was an opportunity to learn. And that the true essence of her journey was love, the love she gave, the love she received, and the love that now guides her back to life. And I, Lucius, watch Nancy's soul grow. I know that this experience has transformed her, that she will return to life with a renewed vision, a new mission. Because there is no greater lesson than realizing that life is not just a series of random events, but a dance of purpose, a constant quest for love and understanding. 7:59 p.m. Nancy is on the brink of crossing the final line. Darkness starts to swell around her, and the world of light and peace she once touched is shattering, like shards of glass falling away. The return to the physical world is a harsh descent, a sudden drop into a place she had almost forgotten. And I am there, observing. Nancy feels the grip of the physical world. It's as if she's being forced into a box far too small to hold her soul. There's a sense of suffocation, of weight, as though every part of her is being dragged down, pulled back to a place she thought she'd left behind. And then, it all breaks. She awakens, her raw scream cutting through the silence of the operating room. The hospital greets her with its coldness, the relentless beeps of the machines, the blinding white lights, and the invasive touch of needles and tubes. Her first reaction is desperation. Nancy tries to move, but her body feels lifeless, a burden she can't shake off. Why am I here again? Her mind screams, but there's no answer. Only the startled faces of the nurses, their eyes wide with shock as they realize she's back, that she's alive. But to Nancy, this life feels like a prison. She tries to speak, but no words come out. Her voice is trapped, smothered by the heavy weight of the pain consuming her. And I, Lucius, can sense the turmoil in her soul, a soul that tasted freedom, now chained again to flesh, to suffering, to the chaos of the physical world. Time moves painfully slow for Nancy. The days crawl by, each minute a struggle. The cold touch of surgical tools, the unending beep of the heart monitor, the metallic taste of sterile hospital air, all these things remind her that she's returned to what was once her reality. A reality that now feels so distant from the peace she had glimpsed. Yet, as with any return, there's a process of adapting. And I watch closely. I see the slow, but inevitable transformation happening within her. At first, it's anger for being ripped away from a place of love and acceptance. Anger for being torn from something that finally felt right. But soon, anger gives way to doubt. What does this mean? Why was I brought back? And gradually, that doubt shifts into something deeper, an understanding that flickers like a small flame, growing stronger with each breath she takes. One morning, as sunlight spills through the hospital room window, Nancy feels something change. A gentle warmth touches her skin, and for the first time since the accident, she feels connected to something greater. It's as if the light she found in that celestial realm is still within her, glowing softly, waiting to be discovered again. She closes her eyes, and in that moment, she feels gratitude for being alive, for still being able to breathe, to feel. And I see it. I see how this simple act of gratitude begins to shift everything. Nancy starts to realize that her return to life wasn't a mistake, but a second chance. An opportunity to live differently, with a new perspective, a new purpose. She remembers the figure of light that guided her, the words spoken to her, and begins to understand that this journey, as painful as it may be, is a necessary part of her growth, of her evolution. Every pain, every challenge, now becomes a step towards something greater, something she doesn't fully understand yet, but senses as part of a path of love and discovery. Gradually, Nancy starts to walk again. Her steps are slow, uncertain at first, but filled with determination. She feels every muscle ache, the weight of her body, but doesn't let it stop her from moving forward. Because now, each step is an affirmation of life, a reminder that the light she found is still with her, guiding her. Every smile she gives to a nurse, every word of encouragement she shares with another patient, are like seeds planted in the soil of a new life, a life she intends to live fully, with all the love and purpose she can muster. I, Lucius, witness Nancy's transformation and feel the beauty of her rebirth. Life holds no guarantees, no promises that the road will be easy, or that every path leads to happiness. But there is one certainty, the chance to learn, to grow, and to live with intention. And when the moment comes, when the final line is crossed, the soul that has lived fully, that has loved and learned, will be ready to return home. And so, I bid farewell to Nancy, not with sorrow, but with deep admiration. Because in watching this soul return to life, I see the power of a second chance, the strength of a soul determined to find the light, even in the darkest moments. And I know that when her journey finally comes to an end, she will be ready to cross the realm of stars, to finally return to the home that has always awaited her. The human soul is a journey, shifting back and forth between light and shadow, and I have the privilege of witnessing this path. Nancy's story is one of those journeys, a crossing from the darkness of fear into the light of understanding. I watched as she moved from rebellion to acceptance, and finally into a deeper awareness that few are ever given the chance to experience. Her return to life wasn't a punishment, it was a choice. A second chance to live more consciously, to cherish every single moment as a gift. And now, as she breathes, as she walks, as she feels, she understands how precious each instant truly is. The light she felt in that celestial place never faded, it simply changed form. It became a flame within her, soft yet powerful, illuminating her path. That is the beauty of living after touching death. You carry a piece of that eternity with you, like a star glowing deep in your chest, guiding your steps back into the physical world. And I wonder, how many of us walk with those hidden stars in our hearts, unaware that they are leading us to where we are meant to be? Nancy realized that her return to her body was an opportunity. A chance to make things right, to love, to live without fear. Death touched her soul, and she came to understand that life isn't just something that happens, it's something you choose, something you create. Every smile she shares, every tear she sheds, becomes a beacon for those who find themselves lost in the dark. Because, without even knowing it, she now carries that light she saw in that heavenly field, and it reflects onto everyone around her. I am Lucius Eternus, and I continue to watch these journeys unfold, as I have since the first breath of life was taken. I see that all souls, in one way or another, walk the same path, one of searching, discovering, and accepting. Death is not an end, it's the beginning of something greater, something that cannot be measured or fully understood by human eyes, but can be felt deeply by the soul. And for those who return, like Nancy, life becomes more than just a series of days passing by. It becomes a chance to see beyond what is visible, to hear the whispers of the infinite in every heartbeat. I've seen so many souls cross that line between life and death, some do so in fear, others in acceptance, but all searching for the same thing, the peace that only understanding can bring. And I know, when Nancy's final moment comes, she will be ready. Her journey will have been worth it, and she will cross that line into the light one last time, not with fear, but with complete acceptance, knowing that true awakening begins when death sets the soul free. So as you listen to this story, ask yourself, what would you do if you knew every second was a gift? If every breath was a chance to live fully? And when that day comes, when death crosses your path, will you be ready to see the light that has always been waiting for you? Remember, true life begins when the soul is freed from the chains of fear and steps across the threshold into the light that has always been there, waiting. And when that moment arrives for you, I will be there, not as an enemy, but as a friend, a presence who understands the beauty and depth of every farewell, of every new beginning. And one day, my friend, we will meet again. On the day of your death.
In shadows I walk, I've been here from the start. I am the hand that seals fate, the end of every heart. I'm no villain nor hero, I'm the peace amidst the pain, the angel who comes, who takes yet offers love.